Hello, everyone. This is Whitney Will from Starhearth Astrology, and I am here today with my friend and colleague, Nicole Stark. And we are here for a super special episode. This is unlike anything that I have done before, but today we are going to be talking about the entire Aquarius and Leo eclipse cycle. We're starting today, February 16th, 2026. It's the day before our first eclipse that happens on the 17th. And so we're going to talk about that eclipse. We are also going to talk about the whole family of eclipses that we will be experiencing over the next 2 years in Leo and Aquarius. We often talk about eclipses as kind of chapters beginning or ending. And so I really wanted to do an episode where we kind of give you the whole book of Aquarius and Leo so that you can think about the 6 eclipses that are going to happen in these signs and kind of see their connections, maybe tune in with yourself, your chart, your astrological life as we step into the first eclipse so that you have a little bit of a view of the landscape of the things that we might encounter here. So thank you, Nicole. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this with me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a wonderful idea. So I'm so excited to be part of it with you. Forewarned is forearmed, right? I feel like that's what we're doing here. Yeah, and just like also just the exercise of going forward and looking at how this all going to play out. It's just interesting to work through in the chart and see. So I'm excited to get into it with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so to our listeners or our viewers on YouTube, the best way to do this is really like grab your planner or notebook and grab your birth chart so that you can, so then we're talking about specific degrees or houses or signs. You're really kind of embroidering your own understanding of your chart with those pieces. It's a great way to know your own astrology. You can also, there's no limit. You can have your mom's chart, your partner's chart, your kid's chart, your bestie's chart, right? We're kind of seeing how astrology plays out in different lives is such a cool way to learn astrology. So gathering that is going to make this whole episode a lot more meaningful. Yeah. And of course, so we're going to head into the episode. We're going to talk about the Leo Aquarius archetypes, kind of that whole polarity, how they feed off of each other, as with life. As we have to live life forward. We can only understand it backwards. We have to live astrology forward, but we can gain so much from processing it backwards. So we're going to talk about the last time the eclipses happened in these signs, which was 2017 to 2019, and kind of explore some of those themes. So we encourage our listeners to be doing kind of the same thing. Take a moment. I'll give you all the dates. This is when I wish I was like a more diligent journaler to check these things. But that one was a big one for me, so easy to find. And then we'll go eclipse by eclipse in this cycle and kind of give some things for people to be on the lookout for and to deepen into their experience of these eclipses. So as always, you can jump around inside the episode. There's the timestamps in the show notes or the YouTube description. So if we're getting tedious somewhere, feel free to jump around. And then also save the video or the episode so that you can come back to it as we near these individual eclipses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also find as far as like jogging memory, like the one lovely thing about social media is that we have these like time-stamped photos. So even if I've not taken like journal, which I do, but I kind of threw like this era, I threw all of these journals out, but I have, you still have your Instagram archive.
Yes.
So yeah, so for everyone, it's amazing what memory that'll jog.
Yeah, that is a great tip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to go back in the timelines. That's why they're called that.
Mm-hmm. there's got to be something good that comes out of social media. No.
And especially, right, I mean, social media, I think we can put it in so many places in astrology, but maybe as a way to step into the Leo archetype and talk about that. So, right, eclipses happen in opposite signs. We've got the North Node, we've got the South Node, we have solar eclipses, we have lunar eclipses. They're just really stirring the pot of two of the polarity of the signs that they're happening in and the polarity of the houses that they're happening in individual charts.
Yeah, and yeah, so then like what, yeah, I like to think, I think Adam Allenbosch kind of talks about it as like a river flowing both directions, you know? So like there's a lot of tendency to think of one as positive and the other as negative, right?
With the nodes.
With the nodes, yeah, with the nodes, or with the signs in this case. I mean, one is Leo, it's the sun, and the other one is Aquarius,
Saturn.
which is Saturn. Yeah, so you know, yeah, but as far as like this is the what's kind of, yeah, going back and forth, it's, I think we talked about this once, I think of this as the axis of identity. If I were like to, I've kind of pinned these archetypal places with all the signs in my mind. So Leo and Aquarius to me is actually the forest, because if you think of a hero kind of going in its journey, when we go into the forest, we lose our sense of self and identity, and we meet the people on the way who are ushering us to a new direction, or blockading us, right, the evil forces, or conquering our fear, or like whatever it is. So when we get into this eclipse, it's like we're like in the dark woods rediscovering ourselves that was born at the, like, it would be Aries and in Libra, like if we were looking at it in zodiacal order. I think of it like that. So we're getting ready to go get lost, to go get found, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. You said identity. I also think about the individual, the axis of the individual, in the sense of, you know, I really associate Leo with wanting to live into specific archetypes. You know, Leo almost being like, okay, I have this role as whatever my roles are in life. A big one for me, and one that's really coming up right now, is like eldest daughter. And Leo receiving a role, because we all do in life. We all receive these expectations and really wanting to do the best job that it could possibly do in that. And it doesn't have to be, I don't know, positive, right? You can have the role of the rebel or the disruptor and stuff, but really kind of leaning into the archetypal force and the kind of psychological river that flows through that role, and wanting to like use your life force to really live into that. Whereas Aquarius I find to be kind of this like stripping away of like all the expectations, all the roles put on me. I'm going to step outside and really hold maybe a different archetype of the exile, of like, what would it mean to be totally free, and finding that sometimes our roles are prisons, right? When we think about a beehive, we think of the queen, because she's singular, as like being in charge in some way, when actually like she has nothing to do with telling anybody anything what to do, and she is, right, she's imprisoned by her role as well.
It's almost like, yeah, that's a really good one for Leo, because like it just like a queen, just, it's just the presence of her. She's not doing anything, she's just existing, you know.
It doesn't matter who she is, she doesn't get to be herself. As you say, right? Like someone has to hold the gravitational center of that role. And I think that people, you know, they think about the Leo archetype as being like center of attention and kind of having this like self-focused narcissistic quality, but it actually takes a tremendous amount of strength and stamina to be able to be at the center, right? Like this, the gravity of the sun is what's holding us all like in orbit. And I don't think it's any less hard to be on the Aquarius side of that polarity, because it is also very, very hard to stay in your resolute, like, aloneness and authenticity, and right, to stand outside of things.
Yeah, and also just like to like thinking like, yeah, you're exiled, but you're exiled from society, like in a way, or like your culture or your family or something. Whereas like Leo being like the status quo of going through and knowing who you are and having all this definition and support almost.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then when you're not there and you're in Aquarius land, you're doing it all on your own. You're not doing
Right.
it. You don't have, yeah, you might find community with other exiles, but you're not like, it's just
Right.
still you. You're singular.
Right. Which speaks to, as you say, the river that flows both directions, right? Once you find community with other exiles, you're stepping into the Leonine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're starting to like gather and create order around us, and it may be based on different ideals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the power of being at the center versus the freedom of being at the edge.
And also just the necessity of this whole process, right? Like as your roles, like when you're right now you're an eldest daughter role, but you also have mother, therapist, astrologer, right? You have all these other roles that kind of go on too. And so there's just sometimes there's just a time limit to what role you're supposed to be inhabiting. That's just the way in the life cycle of all of this. I think that then the eclipse is coming here, right? That would just then be that turning point of shifting away from one role and into another. It can kind of show up that way too. But yeah,
100%.
I know we just think like, I mean that's when your role becomes a prison. It's probably because you've stayed there too long. Like that's
Totally,
not
totally.
the
I
role.
always think of, there's that Death Cab song called "You Are a Tourist,"
Oh yeah.
and one of the lines is, when you find yourself the villain in the story you have written, it's time to go. Sometimes the best, or no,
I don't remember.
it doesn't rhyme, but it's in there. I'm gonna have to edit this as I think about it. When you find yourself the villain in the story you've written, it's time to flee. Sometimes the best intentions are in need of redemption. Won't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, yeah, we've just stayed in one truth, in one story of ourselves, and trying to make something work, or trying to live into something for too long. And right, the nature of eclipses is things end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
we
that's
finally, yeah, because we can finally see that this thing that we thought was giving us power has become a prison.
mm-hmm. And I think that's also when, if Leo ever turns towards arrogance or narcissism or self-importance, it's that too. Because like I just think of people in my life who are just clinging so hard to this one aspect of their identity,
Yeah.
and they can't. It's like if they lose it, they're nothing.
Yeah.
If I lose this thing, then who am I? And but at the same time that they're doing that, they're becoming somebody that they don't even recognize either. You
Right.
know.
And that they probably don't even like.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Right.
tired, exhausted, frayed nerves, like burnout. Like
Yeah.
that's I think the most often shows up in career. Like our career and our identities just get intermingled so much. But that's not really what Leo is.
Mhm.
As a natal Leo moon, I don't like, it's about your personality and your exuberance and your confidence and
Yeah.
creativity.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be necessarily defined by something society would place a label on.
Yeah. It can be anything.
Yeah.
Right. Leo can be as free as Aquarius. Aquarius can be as,
Much of a leader, like as Leo. Like I
mhm,
think like,
yeah,
there's some good examples of that, right?
totally.
Yeah. I can't think of any charts right now, but yeah.
Yeah. And so I find that there's a different feel maybe in the collective to having the North Node in one of the signs versus the other one. But I think having the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo for these eclipses does, while I find it to be less relevant personally in working with natal astrology, like where the North Node is and where the South Node is, and if anyone else has strong feelings, feel free to come at me about that. But I find that like because they feed into each other so much, kind of works the same. But I find that the South Node moving through a place is kind of getting rid of these imprisoning stories that exist there, and the North Node being so hungry. And so I wonder, in speaking in our discussion about roles and fulfilling roles, about if the South Node in Leo will be seeing a lot of people discarding roles and stepping into what feels very frightening, the unknown, or the time between roles, the time between feelings of clarity about our own story and who we are in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is like a really powerful in the mundane way. Like if we're like, like it's just we can all feel this cultural moment kind of coming into what does it mean to be increasing in the sign that rejects norms like that. That can show up in a good number of ways. Like we're already seeing the rejection of norms, and then it's like, well, okay, but what is a president, or what are these alliances, or wait, didn't we like this part of it, but why is this leaving now? Like it can be, yeah, it's like a discarding and then revamping. But yeah, there's like that space in which that space in between right now. And I think we can kind of feel that on a mundane level already. And then to have, just all these solar eclipses happening in these signs. It just, because the solar side of, maybe we should talk about that. Like, I don't know, there is a difference between like the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse.
Absolutely.
In terms of how they feel and how they show up. So I think of the solar eclipse, right? The moon overrides the sun. So we can kind of get this, like the lunar thing sort of come out, and it feels more like a new beginning to me, because like your intuition and those types of things can come up and sort of initiate. They're coming to the surface in a way that they haven't been allowed to before, and so it generates this feeling of something new happening. And then on the lunar side, the earth is getting in the way of the moon's ability to like receive and emanate light. So that can kind of feel like a diminishment in a way. And that's where the releasing, or there's some loss that occurs, or some sweeping away, like you said. So then if you interlope that on top of what's happening in this cycle, we only get that one lunar eclipse in Aquarius. So we're basically getting new beginning after new beginning after new beginning.
Yeah,
like
we get 5 solar eclipses, which is a lot. And it's also coming on the heels of the Pisces Virgo eclipse season, which is intertwined, where we got all lunars and one of the saddest solar eclipses that
ever had
in terms of its power to create a new beginning, because it was in the anaretic degree of Virgo and it was opposite Saturn. And so
my car of 13 years died that carried me all across the country. Anyway, I was like, I don't have a pet, I have cars. So my car was my pet died.
Yeah. I have 2 really old cars that are, on there. I know the feeling. Yeah. So that eclipse being like, yes, it's a new beginning-ish, but it's
also a loss. Yeah.
It's a big loss. So very different vibe with these Leo Aquarius eclipses that are mixed in with for the first half, the Pisces Virgo eclipses, and then for the second half, the Cancer Capricorn eclipses. We actually don't get a pure eclipse
We get,
season.
yeah, we get one. I think 2027, August 2nd, August 17th. I have it right here. We
Yeah,
get a
but
solar
but
eclipse.
we get that eclipse season. We have three eclipses,
I
and so
know.
2 weeks before there is a partial lunar that is in Capricorn.
Yeah, the
So
interloper.
yeah, so maybe let's step into it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so we are so just some quick vocabulary. So when we're talking about an eclipse cycle, we're talking about all the eclipses within a pair of signs for a couple of years, usually while the nodes are transiting that sign. When we're talking about an eclipse season, we're talking about the month-long period that happens twice a year where we're having eclipses inside within that month, which are especially potent times for our lives to change in different ways, especially if our charts are really anchored to those signs, which can happen in a number of ways. As we step into this Leo and Aquarius eclipse cycle, that will be marked by our first eclipse, February 17th, 2026, a solar eclipse in Aquarius, and then we will have a solar eclipse on August 12th in Leo, and then we will have another solar eclipse on February 6th in Aquarius. And we're going to get into all of these, but just kind of naming the timeline. And then we have solar eclipse in Leo on August 2nd, a partial lunar eclipse in Aquarius on August 17th, and then a final solar eclipse in Aquarius on January 26th of 2028. And that is going to be our full cycle. These are the first eclipses that we've had in this pair of signs since 2019. And so, yeah, how are you working with that connection in your own life? How are you seeing that show up?
Yeah, so I think if we go further back, like the last eclipse cycle, you were saying it was 2017.
Yeah, so the first one was on February 11th of 2017, and that was a lunar eclipse in Leo, was the first one. And then we had one on August 8th of 2017, which was lunar Aquarius. August 21st was solar Leo. That was the Great American Eclipse. Then we had a lunar one on February 1st, 2018, solar on February 15th of 2018. Then we had a lunar on July 27th, a solar on August 12th, and the final one was a lunar eclipse on January 20th of 2019.
Which is when I moved to Washington. Yeah, so that whole period for me, and it's like the greatest time, the worst time to a really wonderful time. Once I got to Washington, like 2019 was a really lovely year for me. But it was like I got into a relationship, and then, which is like the only one that I've ever had where I like lived with him, and then he was doing things, and then bad things, and then I left, and then I was on my own, like in an apartment, like for the first time. Like I lived on my own in lots of weird ways before, like yurts, barns, campers. But this is the first time that I like had multiple jobs, and I was like really ingrained and embedded in the town. I was working the farmers market, like very working with people on city council. I was very, very involved. And yeah, and then the most traumatic event of my adult life happened to me during this time. And so for me, though, these eclipses, I'm a natal Aquarius North Node. And so in my moon is in Leo, basically conjunct. I was born like a day before a solar eclipse in Virgo. So this eclipse cycle is always really loud for me, but last time around it was inverted, so we had like the nodal opposition period, so
Yeah.
that
So
tends to
you're
feel,
around 27. It happens for everybody
yeah.
around 27.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so which then of course also coincides, like that age coincides with Saturn return.
Yeah.
um,
Beginning the Saturn return.
Mine was like 3, so super not fun. And I find that what is happening right now is that it's all coming back up, but in a way in which I'm also releasing it too. Where I'm like, okay, like it's just that whole, I've almost like my whole identity got wrapped in the pain from the trauma and the response of that. So lots of PTSD, like chronic PTSD. And I'll talk about this when we talk about the eclipse that just happened when we get into it. So I'll finish that. We'll table that. But basically, that's what I see this cycle based off of what just happened, like kicking off is this time period in which I'm letting go of an identity that has maybe not consciously been rooted in pain and suffering, but like when you go through traumatic events, there's just, it just gets in your body, you know?
Yeah.
And now this is it's going to go over my moon. It's got to get out of my body, get back onto the dreams that I had foregone because of this whole time period. And I do feel like I can kind of see, oh, I want my life to kind of go back to this way in this direction, but I also understand I'm not quite ready. And so I know that like where I'm living even now, I know I have the end date of when, you know, like the lease is up, right? And so I have this sort of like, okay, this whole time period, we're going to do this. We're going to take care of your body and get your affairs back in order and kind of attend to these things so that this other thing can come back. Sort of old dreams.
Yeah, which is also a beautiful way to talk about the cadent houses, right? So as a Virgo rising, you have Leo in the 12th, you have Aquarius in the 6th, 12th, and then also the 3rd and the 9th are the cadent houses, which I find when stuff is happening in there, it can be, I mean, especially in those houses, but even the other ones, so much is happening internally in how you're like organizing and reorganizing your understanding of yourself and the mind body connection. Yeah, the stuff that has been stored in those places. Yeah, whereas, you know, the angular houses 1, 4, 7, and 10, when changes happen there, everybody can see those changes happening to you. And I think that, yeah, when we're dealing with stuff happening in the cadent houses, we are in our own like inner revolution, but it's not always visible on the outside until we step out of.
Yeah, too, because you're not like, there might be times, and I find there are times when I am able to project what's going on, and there's other times when I can't do it, you know. And this is also coming from somebody who lives in that space. Like, yeah, I'm a Leo moon. I'm also a Virgo sun. So it's this constant like battle between like
I know.
who I'm trying to become, you know, and what's going, because like it's just, and it's just true of my life. Like there's just been a lot of like sad shit that's happened to me, you know, and and in overabundance, you know, you know, sometimes my Leo side, I'm like, oh God, why is this happening? But it just is. So like these eclipses and any retrogrades that kind of go through there, like always just really, yeah, they really stir the pot for me. So as you say, but I think the difference between then and now also though is an astrological practice. So being able to like kind of like have the therapy aspect of being able to look at this archetypally and like take the reins a little bit of my inner life and go, no, we're going to go this way. We're not going to go that way.
Yeah.
That's where I find, and that's what I love about astrology. It's so useful for that. So
yeah, me too. Yeah, my own experience with this. So I'm an Aquarius rising, Leo stellium in the 7th house. The Leo Aquarius polarity I feel so much in my identity and in my relationships. And then, you know, the 7th house also being client work, like both being an astrologer and a therapist, like that is where my work is, that is where my heart is. I love it. And this eclipse cycle was the beginning of all of that for me, because that first eclipse that happened on February 11th of 2017, that was in my second quarter of graduate school to become a therapist. And so was really kind of stepping into that client work. I was also got really into astrology that year. And then a year from that, so the February 1st lunar eclipse happened right on my ascendant. And that was when I came out of the astrology closet. And within a week of that, I started writing for my local paper. I was on my local radio station as an astrologer, and I started giving astrology readings and like stepping into the client work. And so like so powerfully, right, like release myself from a ton of shame that I experienced about identifying with astrology. Actually, it took me years to release that. But
Yeah.
this was the beginning.
Doesn't it get exhausting? Like, oh yeah, I'm an astrologer, but no, not like how you think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's an ambivalence in claiming that for myself. And so, yeah, both stepping into client work as an astrologer, as a therapist. Yeah, I mean, this kind of feels like everything. I also met my husband during those years. I met one of my best friends that has just been so important in my development as both an individual and also as an astrologer and a therapist. And so, yeah, the first seventh, identity, client work, everything there, I'm like, whoa, okay, we are going back into that level of what's happening.
It's going to be the opposite. Yeah, right? The opposite flow of what you had before.
Yeah, now I've got, the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo in my seventh. So we'll be seeing hopefully some, I mean, I think, so it's interesting talking about the axis of the individual, and the Carl Jung, who came up with the idea of individuation, was an Aquarius rising Leo sun.
I remember seeing that going, oh yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, right. So he comes up with a process of like working with your inner life, this idea that like you have to be, right, like part of what you need to do is become your full self, right? Straddle that axis of Aquarius and Leo, make a break from the expectations of the time, right? He's got his sun in the seventh house and the place of client work. Yes, I'm gonna like sit with people and talk to them.
Yeah.
And just a really powerful manifestation of the whole Leo Aquarius axis.
Yeah. While being such like a character in and of himself. Too. And I also wrote and also just writing so much. I remember one time Michael Pollan said something like the ego is what writes the book too. So like in his case, like just getting that, like he gave us so much material out of that because he believed so strongly in what he was doing, and the cause behind what he was doing, to help people. So
and he also had the courage to change over a time period. So, right, like, his work contradicts itself. He changes his beliefs about things over the course of his life. He becomes more esoteric and changes how he thinks about things. He doesn't have to defend a fortress that he's kind of kept his ego inside. He goes through some really dark times and has the courage, which is demanded of both Aquarius and Leo, to talk about that. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely look into that more. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hop into these eclipses. I'm going to share the charts and let's go through them. So we're opening today talking about tomorrow's eclipse. And it's nothing. Okay. Ah, oops. Yeah, so here is February 17th. We have the sun and the moon together at 28 degrees of Aquarius. For this eclipse, it is not going to be visible in the US, obviously, that's happening below the horizon. And the strongest aspect is this square to Uranus that is still at its station degree from where it's stationed on February 3rd. So, very much bringing up all of the Uranian stuff. What do you think when you look at this eclipse?
Yeah. So I have the good graces, I guess, of already experiencing this eclipse before the exact date, which does kind of happen, right? Like things don't always, it's not like it's right on this day. So, yeah, the Uranus is always the most unexpected thing. Like, I think it's the thing that comes out of left field. And like, because, right, like as astrologers, I was constantly looking, it's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And what happened is it rained and in the desert out here where I live, and a pack rat got into my camper. And so I live in this little tiny refurbished camper. It's cute. But I moved in. So here's the thing. I moved in about like seven months ago. And it was, like about the eclipse, the last one, 6-7 months ago. And basically I was in a rush and stuff. And so I just sort of like, I threw everything. It's almost like I moved into like a space that wasn't really prepared for it. Anyway, over time in my life, like I've just been getting tired and whatever, and like a little piece of clutter built up. And I've been feeling this need to like spring clean. I still had like my Christmas Douglas fir boughs just sort of like decorate, because I was like, oh, I'll take them down in the spring with the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so yeah, so basically all of yesterday I went into town, I grabbed provisions, and I came back and I just deep cleaned. Like I just everything, I pulled it out of the counter, just vacuumed, sprayed my little Mighty Mint spray and put it back in, and I went through every crack, corner, and crevice in this place, and it is gloriously clean now. No pack rat. I'll have to obviously keep reapplying this spray, but yeah, so that's just like, that's what it is. It's for me, like this is my 6th house, right? So just like having to attend to the mundane thing of just cleaning house, so because of some little critter coming in. And it also sleep deprived me, so I'm still feeling a little weird. I finally, my first good night's sleep was like last night, but I couldn't fall asleep until like probably like 11:30 midnight. I woke up at 8, so I think I got a good night's sleep. But
Nice.
it's the first time that in like 2 days,
Oh,
because I couldn't deal with. So also where I am too, I'm just so far away. Like it was 100 miles of travel yesterday just to go into town and get everything I needed to get to come back here. So it's not like I couldn't just like, oh, I have a pack rat, I can like go swing by something after work. Like I live in a remote place. So it took, and luckily there's an apartment. I tried to sleep in there, like just like right above me. But yeah, it was, yeah. So it's just funny. Like it was like sleep deprivation, cleaning house, like just this whole
yeah,
thing.
all 6th house.
Yeah. But where that, from what I was saying earlier, so one of the things though too, what was the sleep deprivation, what was kind of keeping me up was that hypervigilance. And so like, because you hear this noise, you're like, what is it? What is it? I actually felt something go over my like face. And then I like turned the light on. I was like, and there's like a little bit of string. I was like, oh, it's the string. And then all of a sudden I heard the rustling and I was like, wait, what was that? So like my whole night was me trying to like sleep, wake up, turn all the lights on, convince myself it was fine. But then I saw it, then I know it's in there. And so that, like, why I think this eclipse cycle is a lot of clearing out the old energy is that when you go through trauma, like the way that I went through, right, hypervigilance is a thing that you have to battle, like in that constant frayed, nerved state. And it's like, no, I'm okay. All I have to do is clean this. All I have to do is this. It's going to be fine. So I felt like, and I had nightmares going back to what had happened to me in 2018 because my body was mimiking the state that it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as like, oh, I didn't get a good night's sleep because a pack rat came into my living space. It's also that what it caused was sort of like a flashback moments to that time period, and having to go, no, I'm okay. Like, I'm fine. I'm safe.
Which is really the tension between the 6th and the 12th house. The 12th house is the stuff, that maybe we don't look at all the time, or the trauma that gets stored really deep down. And the nervous system in your body holding on in that way and having the experience of having like your space be invaded by a pack rat, but it re-engaged this part of your body.
Yeah. Which is so literal. I mean, I think the Uranus and Mercury both kind of represent the nervous system too. So, right, like I think you could feel, that's why like, we say, Uranus is the great disruptor and like change things, but it's also like anxiety inducing,
For sure. Flinging you into the unknown and having things happen that are way beyond your control, which I think is true for all of the outer planets. But yeah, the Uranus one taps into your nervous system more than the other planets, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah. Also, I love your bit about the literalness of a pack rat in a 6th house being
the 6th house being really pets and animals. I mean, I think the way that we have pets
not even
now,
big pets, small pets,
is more of like the 5th house. But the way that we used to have animals and pets is the 6th house. So yeah, a surprise pet you did not want,
and gone.
So, and gone because you cleared out all the space, and now everything smells super fresh with that intense mint.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
very invigorating.
I was like, I can breathe easier. He's like, Mighty Mint, everybody, you can get it. It works. Plug for Mighty Mint. They're not sponsoring this episode.
Yeah, but if you know them, tell us.
I will sponsor them forever. I will influence for them. Yeah. So yeah, and then I grabbed some good like cedar sticks too, so it was like this lovely mint cedar thing going on that I fell asleep to. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah,
beautiful. I'm glad it seems simple and resolving. We'll see. We will check in about your pack rat living space, how it feels to be in your body.
Yeah, give me a couple days to get back in. I'm still a little
Yeah, well, it's interesting, these Aquarius eclipses, because in terms of embodiment, right, you have Aquarius in the 6th house, which is literally your body, right? It's also your job, and you live at your job.
Oh, close, not quite. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I may. We'll see.
Yeah.
Jury's still out on whether or not I'm actually going to keep this job or not.
Yeah.
I find that answer to probably more likely to come with the lunar eclipse in March, but
yeah.
Yes, we'll see.
Okay, well, we'll stay tuned. Yeah. They're tied into other ones. Yeah. Well, this eclipse in Aquarius happens in my 1st house, which can also relate to mental health and the stability of your identity and what you represent and how things are feeling in that space. And by degree, my Aquarius stuff, I have Saturn at 0, I have my ascendant at 11. So it's not hitting things in Aquarius, but I have a Mercury-Jupiter conjunction opposite this eclipse. I have Mercury at 27 degrees of Leo and Leo at 29. So this is like right opposite. And they're also experiencing that square from Uranus. And I'm finding myself having to rethink major pieces of my identity in interruptive ways that I just really had not anticipated, that have been traumatic, not so much in an embodied way, but very traumatic in a sense of feeling like I understood who I was, and then having some things happen related to this eclipse and to the Uranus station, Uranus station in my 4th house of my family. And then um, my, having a big kind of rift in my family, and my dad's sun is at 27 degrees of Aquarius, and my mom's sun is at 27 degrees of Taurus. So they are both caught up in the square.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mentioned the eldest daughter, and that
Mm.
role, as you say, I think really coming to an end in the way that it has shown up in my life, and finding that, in the first few gasps of that, to be fairly devastating, because a lot of me has rested on that, and then beginning to step into and take a breath into what freedom would be possible if I wasn't carrying some of that weight.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. The eldest children always get it, don't they? Yeah. Yeah. That's good though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And so, yeah. And then, yeah, so we'll be seeing these shifts, but certainly, and that's a good tip for people too, is that really pay attention to where Uranus is and the house where Uranus is in your chart, because that, because of this aspect, because of Uranus in such a tight square with this eclipse, it's really being activated in this way as the final gasp of Uranus and Taurus. And right, for all of the other eclipses in this eclipse cycle, Uranus is going to be in Gemini. It's going to have a much more gentle aspect, if any, with the eclipses, but not this one. This one is the awakener. This one is like shaking the foundations.
Yeah.
The last earthquake of
Yeah.
Uranus and Taurus.
Yeah, it is such like a weird, it's such an interesting little, this eclipse cycle, and the way that it starts is such a juxtaposition between something new ending and something, or something old ending and something new beginning, like, which we always say, like, oh, every ending is a new beginning, like, like we have all these colloquialisms about it or whatever. But like in this case, like, not only are we just starting a whole new cycle, but
Yeah.
like Uranus is going to be over here, Saturn, the ruler of Aquarius,
This
is going to
eclipse, yeah.
be the eclipse is in a new space, right?
Mm-hmm.
um we're really just launching into uncharted territory, and so it is
We really
interesting to
are.
like think of like this eclipse as being the thing that clears it away, and then, like, if you go with that flow, which I'm assuming we will, right, it becomes easier, right? Like, just the idea of just going from a square to trine or a sextile instead, you know
Mm-hmm.
um like giving into the flow of things makes the
Mm-hmm.
change much easier to
Right.
bear and navigate. And that's just this whole cycle. So like just starting off like, no, you really gotta,
You
this is
really
a
have to let
whole
go.
new thing,
Yeah.
like, yeah, if you want to get to the building part, you've got to get, first you got to destroy the things.
Right. The Aquarian sludge is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna pry your fingers loose on this one. But yeah, yeah, such a strong
Yeah, such so strong, just
start.
disruptive. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
So
Even
then,
just Mars too, like
and Mars,
also enclosed a little bit by this like Mars Uranus square. So like that just sort of adds a
right.
little bit more of like a goading.
Totally. And by what is it, February 27th is when we get the exact Mars Uranus square. And so it's really just, it's getting set off by these eclipses. And then that Mars Uranus square is just gonna, like, we are in it for the space between eclipses.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a March 3rd eclipse. We're not going to talk about it here because that is a Virgo lunar eclipse. But that's part of this eclipse season. And then we will be kind of out of eclipse season by mid-March. And Jupiter will have stationed direct, and Mercury will be direct, and
Venus,
there's
yeah.
never a dull moment this year, but
Yeah.
we will be in a different place. And then this eclipse opens a chapter that we will be living in the storylines that impact the realizations, the insights from this eclipse in our life, really until we reach the next eclipse in this cycle, which is August 12th.
Yes.
You know, sometimes when we talk about new moons and solar eclipses, we also talk about them culminating at the full moon in that sign. The full moon in Aquarius is not eclipsed. It happens on July 29th. You know, we may see some kind of culmination, but it's not an eclipse and not there's like a huge chapter change. So the next eclipse we get in this cycle is a new moon solar eclipse in Leo at 20 degrees of Leo.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to like think about how to, I don't know. It's like, so we had this like very startling new beginning in this one area, and this one
in terms of, this eclipse cycle is not the craziest.
No.
It's not the craziest in general. In my chart, this one I think is going to be very potent because my Venus is at 21 degrees of Leo. So this is a solar eclipse on top of my Venus that is retrograde and in a natal square to Pluto in Scorpio. So this one is going to activate my retrograde Venus, Pluto square. And I used to, I started out thinking that my Venus was so much about relationships, and it really has been, but it's opposite my vertex. And the astrologer Sam Reynolds, when I was talking to him about some career stuff, really pointed to Venus because it's opposite my vertex is everything to do with my career. And that's so true. I mean, I was trained as a marriage and family therapist. And so you get the relationship and the career part. And so just in other people working with their charts, sometimes it's not, sometimes living into your chart over a period of years opens it up in these ways. And so I expect that while there will probably be some interesting stuff developing in my relationships at this time, I also imagine that my career will be going through some kind of transformation as well.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't think of. I don't really like go into the vertex too often.
Neither do I. I don't have a lot.
Mine's an Aquarius. Right near my notes. Maybe I should consider that. Yeah. For me, this happens 4 degrees off my natal moon. So it's right on my part of fortune, which is going to be interesting. So I'm not, I don't think I'm like fearing it so much. I also wonder too, just having gone through, right, like at this point, when we're listening to this, we can at least be a little bit armed by knowing what has happened at this eclipse, the first solar eclipse here. And so if I stay cool on my trajectory, I'm like just hoping that like this is just a new beginning in my like mental body, like in that sort of wellness area.
Totally. And I think if you do go back to your Instagram, there was a solar eclipse on August 11th of 2018. And so that would have been, within a degree of this.
That was horrible. That was like, if you had to nail the moment of the worst thing, that was actually it. Because the event that took place that caused all of this happened 10 days before my birthday. Yeah, as far as like the trauma that I'm processing from everything. Yeah, it was August 18th, 17th, 18th in the early morning hours. That's when it happened. Yeah, very painful stuff coming up for me.
Very painful stuff. And so around this eclipse, doing so much work around how to care for yourself in that space, right? If that stuff is coming up again to be addressed, which was what you were kind of identifying.
Yeah.
Right? How much safety and support can we bring into that? And I think, having Jupiter in Leo, right? Jupiter and Mercury in Leo, having supportive conversations and the Jupiterian support is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm not so like, again, like I think with this eclipse too, like I was just gonna mention, like the co-presence with Jupiter and Mercury together does soften it. So I would not expect it to feel as disruptive and nerve inducing as the one in Aquarius. But
Right.
it's just like, where's that benefic energy coming from? Like, like that's when you think in your own life, like it's nice to have like the changes that are happening are, I think, well supported, right? Because the moon is going to be carrying the energy. It's going to swoop over Jupiter before it does this.
Right. It's going to swoop over Jupiter. Yeah, the benefics are in really nice places, and I think, I mean, while we can't ignore Pluto being opposite Mercury, I think that, right, like gives you the potential for transformation around these things
Yeah.
while being supported. And right, this Venus is on your natal Mercury, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Wait.
on my natal Mars. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Also, this will be the last one. Like, you can also look into perfection years too, right? So like
right.
this eclipse will happen, and then I'll have a birthday, and I'm going to go into a Libra year, so it's going to be a Venus year where my natal Mercury is, like where my natal Venus is,
Mhm.
and so I think this is the last, like, whereas right now I'm in a first house year where my natal Mars is and my
Yeah.
sun. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's sort of like, and it's the end, like right before your solar return. It's sort of like it's kind of ending.
For
It's a
sure.
very always a quiet time for me, honestly. Like if
Right.
I'm
It's your
still
12th house time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, like I've spent most of my life as a farmer, and August is you would think that it would be busy, but it's not. Usually, like the weeds are dying because they're not
Mhm.
getting water,
Yeah.
So it's that you're kind of in this sort
You're
of
harvesting.
you're harvesting. You're not really like, yeah.
Yeah. You're
The biggest
harvesting,
harvest,
storing,
yeah.
selling. Yeah.
At this point, you've gotten used to everything that you're doing, and yeah, it's
Mhm.
not like a. It's usually for me not a big. I can usually rest a little more. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
So planning. Yeah. Planning around that. It's on a Wednesday. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think like that Mercury opposite Pluto is the most contentious thing
And
here.
and yeah, and I think Mercury has Jupiter and is in a sextile with Venus. So configured to both benefics,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's much more likely that the Plutonian piece is gonna be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Or just manifest externally, right? Sometimes I do think like the farther the outer planet is, and Pluto being the most, it's like sometimes it really crops up way more in the news cycle than it does
Yeah,
always in
for
your
sure.
life.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah.
I don't fear the outer planets as much.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got this grand air trine, which just feels like freedom. Pluto, Venus, Uranus.
Yeah. I like Venus and Uranus in a good aspect to each other.
Me too. Me too.
I kind of think they're secret besties or something. I don't know. The best friends you wouldn't think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then we've got the chapter that opens here. And then we will have, as part of that eclipse cycle, or that eclipse season,
Mm-hmm.
we will have a lunar eclipse on August 27th. Pisces.
Last time. That's the only
Um,
thing I'll say, right? Last time in Pisces.
last time in Pisces, it is in a square to Uranus, so that one's going to be interesting. The Uranian piece, it moves out of the fixed signs and into the mutable signs. But yeah, so that will be another kind of ending in Pisces. And then we will be out of the summer's eclipse season, and then following eclipse is going to be February 6th of 2027. Yeah, right on the North Node. Very tight to it, opposite Jupiter is, the tightest aspect for this. It is going to be while Mars is retrograde in Virgo. But yeah, like I say, the tightest aspect is this. We've got Jupiter on the south node
Mm-hmm.
and this eclipse on the north node. And I think Jupiter and the South Node, in traditional astrology, and talking about the South Node, it's said to be of the nature of Saturn, whereas the North Node is the nature of Jupiter. So having Jupiter on the South Node is, you get, right, the planet that creates abundance, the place that kind of shrinks things or spiritualizes things. And so I find this, I've had readings where people say, like, oh, Jupiter over your South Node, you might, have like a loss of a kind of spirituality. The way that I have generally experienced that is the opposite. I go like deep into faith because the South Node is kind of like, okay, I'm letting go of the earthly pieces. And Jupiter has a lot of faith and belief and also hope in it. And so I think that there can be a kind of surrender to this. It's kind of like,
yeah, I think that the South Node too also brings up things that are innate. So if you're like quietly spiritual or anything like that, like it's going to bring up your innate beliefs.
I love that.
You're going to, just be maybe a little bit more driven by the good things. Like, because a lot of people too, I just have a different, maybe I just can't work with nodes in terms of karma because I'm not versed in karma. I think of them as sort of like gifts and troubles from your family and the thing that you grew up in versus like the new behaviors and patterns that help break them.
Yeah, we're not evolutionary astrologers.
Yeah.
If anyone has not figured that out, we are not. More respect to you, that's not how we talk about things.
This doesn't work with my brain. And so so I think and I also, again, like I have at least experienced Jupiter on the South Node, because like again I'm a South Node in Leo, and so those time periods have been just really beneficial. Actually, I mean, it might not be the wildest, craziest thing, but it's like you would expect that Jupiter and Cancer would be like better for me, but actually Jupiter and Leo is typically better for me, even though it's in the 12th house and on the South Node. But I think it just brings up the innate things. And if it is clearing anything out, if anything, I guess Jupiter and Leo can be a little overconfident, over like exaggerating. It's I think yours presents more of just like being like that optimistic, like it's totally gonna work. Yeah, like we could totally do this and we can figure it all out and it's totally gonna be fine. But that's like Mercury, Jupiter. It's good. It brings like a good, like hopeful outlook, things like that.
It is more conservative when it's retrograde. I think it is like in a more reflective state. I also think that this, because the previous eclipse that happens on August 12th happens right at 20 degrees of Leo, or this eclipse we get that opposite. And so it's almost like Jupiter on the South Node can take the gifts and the teachings of whatever our experience was with that eclipse and like have a sense of gratitude for that, while we have a new, again, solar eclipse, new beginning in like, okay, whatever we learned about, in my case, it's going to be about my Venus. Then just being like, okay, and now you can step into.
It's almost like, I wonder, just thinking about how this is going to go through, like if every single step we're just like taking to this new version of ourselves, and every single one of these is just like it's a new thing. So it's like you think you'll figure it out, but no, actually you can go higher, maybe better than you thought you could. That could be like this with Jupiter there, like you thought that you're like, okay, I did it. And it's like, no, dude, go a little more. Take it further, keep going. This is pretty, this is just pretty good. What's interesting, I'm just looking further into it, we have Mercury in Pisces again, just interesting.
Mercury is again in a sextile with Venus. For that eclipse, it's ruled by that Jupiter. That's nice. I mean, Saturn rules this eclipse. It's in a loose sextile with it. This eclipse is maybe like part 2 of the February 17th first one, but it's toned down. We're definitely in the work. We're not square to Uranus. We're not in the big disruptive phase. This one feels like a little bit more in the flow of it. There is still tension in this chart. It's just coming from other places, like namely retrograde Mars moving into a square with Uranus.
Yeah, opposite to Mercury. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping if this is February 2027, I should have moved by then. So that will be interesting for me. I always move. That's a retrograde. The whole Venus retrograde cycle it used to go from Virgo to Leo. Now it's just in Leo. But since I was 2 years old, it
You
literally,
move every time.
I'm not just move, but I move ginormous moves
Ginormous moves.
that of like that, then I stay there. So it's like from Illinois to Texas, Texas to Illinois. So I find that whenever and now that Venus won't be doing it, I think Mars now is gonna do, we're gonna get that one Mars retrograde to
back to Washington.
it could be Washington.
Yeah, come join me. Yeah, okay, well, I will be planning on that. We'll do this one in person.
That would be fun. Yeah.
And then again, well, okay. So then we have our final, I'll just make the note that we have our final Virgo eclipse on February 20th here. And it is at 2 degrees of Virgo, which means it's going to be in a square to Uranus and opposite retrograde Mars. So that's going to be activated by the eclipse that follows this one, the lunar eclipse that follows that one, which isn't, we'll talk about it when we get there. It's a super gnarly way for us to close that eclipse cycle.
And it happens on my sun. So
I know. I pray for all the Virgos, but we have just been in it. We are rocking it just by surviving. Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least in the Aquarius Leo, it's gentle. Yeah. So we have
gentler. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the easy version. Okay. So then we get so then we're actually there's one before this. We've got a partial lunar eclipse that happens in the middle of July. That is it's our first Capricorn eclipse. It's a partial lunar, but then we have a August 2nd Leo solar, and then an August 17th partial lunar in Aquarius. But so here's the solar eclipse.
So this is the first time it tries to make sense, kind of. One time we get somewhat of an eclipse cycle that is a sun and a moon within the signs that we are talking about.
Oh my gosh, this one, I think that this one is the loudest one since the February 17th one, because we have a Venus-Pluto opposition in this eclipse. Yeah. And you can't make any sense of it because we have Mercury square Saturn too as part of it. This one just feels harsh to me.
Yeah, it just feels like, I don't know. It feels like the underworld rears its head and is like, right. I just think of like, whenever I think of Pluto.
Yeah, this is it gives very Persephone
very
vibes.
Hades, like coming to snatch the spring out of the world and pull us into winter.
Yeah.
Early. Yeah. I do think that this one will hit pretty big. I think I think it's like a big hitter in terms of mundane astrology for sure.
Yeah.
And there's just no way of getting around it. I mean, but the nice thing is, like, if it weren't for Pluto, it would be so great because it would be like Venus in Leo with the moon
and the sun, right? Like, yeah, she's in her superior conjunction with the sun. She's on the other side of the sun. So we're midway in between Venus retrogrades for this one. She's in between her Scorpio and Gemini retrogrades here. But yeah, and I mean, So oppositions are of the nature of Saturn. They are stalemates. And when you've got Pluto and Venus, sometimes that's really nice because you don't want an easy flow of energy between Pluto and Venus
That's true.
necessarily.
Yeah, you want her to fight a little bit.
You want her to fight. You want her to say, like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop it.
And Venus in Leo seems like such a big cultural thing. Again, like if we're thinking about Leo as like the status quo or celebrities or roles or whatever, it's like she's just very that was the Venus. I always just think forever the Venus station in Leo with Barbie.
Yeah, it was the Barbie movie. We also had during that time period like the two highest grossing like female
Oh yeah, Beyonce and
Beyonce's tour and Taylor Swift's Eras tour kind of starting out in that, and just these like queen, just this like queen. Yeah, so Margot Robbie, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift energy. It's opposite Pluto, so you know, I mean, as we will point out, sometimes that looks like one of these queen figures experiencing some kind of fall from grace. With Pluto and Aquarius, that can have to do with like technology or some disgusting piece of
I get a deep fake AI.
fake AI stuff.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah. But on a personal level, again, right? Like again, we have a Leo eclipse with Venus. This time everyone's Venus has to do it, not just mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we get how do we show up in these feminine archetypes, and what is the status quo about our expectations around femme people, and how might Pluto be offering freedom that might at first look very, very scary?
Yeah. I did this show this. Yeah, I think too, like Pluto, there's another way in which it seems like it's about personal power or stepping into like your real seat of power. So like it can, that energy challenging you to step into that more defined, louder defined feminine role or feminine side.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you're saying, like I think it just and again, so that's the next evolution of your beginning, right? Because again, it's another new beginning.
The next evolution of your beginning.
Now it's like, okay, how can you make your inner princess louder and stronger and more courageous and beneficial to the land, all of the land?
Yeah, and again, we get that grand air trine with Pluto and Uranus, but instead of it being with Venus in Libra like it was the year before, it's with Mars in Libra. So now, like, you have your warrior, and anyone that thinks that Mars in Libra cannot be ferocious, especially in a sextile, right? We've got this like kite with the eclipse itself. This one's okay. I'm feeling the Plutonian transform my expectations for this eclipse. It actually feels kind of baller.
Right, like too, like also like Mars and Libra really stands for social justice things. Like it's not, and it stands for movement.
Yeah.
It's Mars operating for the relationship, not for itself or its own inner drive. So a very loud cultural moment that awakens your inner queen.
That's highly emotional with that Mercury and Cancer squaring Saturn, and just like I'm just hearing like the screams, like not like the like violent screams, but the like outrage screams.
And right, like in Mercury, and like I like Mercury in Cancer a lot. Actually, I think Cancer has a lot to do with writing and speaking eloquently, like about your emotions. I just think of like Taylor Swift as a Cancer moon, like maybe there's like songwriting, but like, you know, but having Mercury there like allows like that, the ability to connect the mind and the heart, maybe the emotional system better. And then Saturn being like, but you in Aquarius, like, okay, but you have to stand. You have to stand for it.
You have to stand for it. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm excited about this one. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, we get our only kind of version of a lunar eclipse in this whole cycle. So here again, we have the sun together with Venus,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the moon at
24.
24 Aquarius. It's still in that trine with Mars,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, we went from like the eclipse being in a sextile with Mars to this eclipse being in a trine with Mars, but Venus and Mars still have that kind of sextile between them.
Mercury's moved on though so fast.
Yeah, but Mercury is even more powerful, right? In
Yeah.
exaltation together with Jupiter
Yeah.
in Virgo. You know, Jupiter in Virgo is such a tone change from Jupiter in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
There's more humility, I feel like, in this eclipse, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's like, yeah, if we stood up for something loudly, just at that time, like now we have to move forward, and we have to. It's also like, I mean, it's maybe like grieving. I don't know. It's like not grieving, but now you're like, okay, well, how do we build it though?
yeah, how do we build it? It's
Yeah.
almost like, okay, we got the Congress's attention, like we have to make a law around this, and then this is actually like drafting the bill,
Oh, yeah.
right? And we've got Mercury in a really powerful position to do that, but we also have Mars moving into an opposition with Saturn
Mm-hmm.
in that, right? Before Mars was opposite Neptune for that previous eclipse, like, okay, what's the fantasy? And
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, how can we actually push this through Congress? How can we actually make a plan around how we're going to address this?
Which may feel like a bummer, honestly. Like, like after all
It
of that,
often
like,
does.
yeah, because I just think Mars opposite Saturn, like in the end, like once after you go through it, or if you look back to like what you build during the time period, you'll see that it did last. But at that moment in time, it felt like you were stuck. Like you're like, but I want this to change right now, but it
Yeah,
can't change right now,
it can't change right now, but it probably will change. I mean, it's still in a trine to Saturn. I mean, the sun and the sun Venus conjunction is in a trine to Saturn.
Yeah.
And we also have Saturn and Mars in a kind of mutual reception, with Mars in Saturn sign of exaltation and Saturn and Mars sign of rulership. So they right,
They're
they're
able to.
struggling to do each other's jobs, which is inefficient, but that it's not impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think it's just quieter. It's like, I think it just sort of the tidal wave maybe like rushes, and then it like sort of comes down, and we start to process. So I think Mercury in Virgo too, just being the digester of what happened, yeah, and having those maybe like very productive conversations about what's going on. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's our only lunar eclipse. And then we have one more. We will, we have this one, and then we're firmly in the Cancer Capricorn eclipse season. So this is the closing. This is the closing one. And what a closing argument.
yeah, no longer opposed to Pluto. Pluto is right there.
Pluto is right there.
Mars.
Mars is conjoining a retrograde Mercury. The eclipse is happening in an exact trine to Uranus, right? Uranus no longer the interrupter of the eclipse, but the accelerator, right? We've got the Pluto Uranus trine at the core of this, and we have this one feels like, to me, this one feels like a bulldozer, in that there's so much energy in this. And again, right, we got trines. We don't really have anybody pumping the brakes. in this one, because even so, right, like that Mercury Mars conjunction is in a sextile with Saturn that's ruling all of that stuff. And
Yeah.
nothing in that, I mean, you get Venus in her exaltation in Pisces, but nothing in that cares about how gentle it is. It's not being like needlessly violent, but it is being like ruthlessly Aquarian efficient, which is like, I'm focused on the future
Mm-hmm.
and we are just driving our bulldozer over whatever we need to get there.
Yeah. Mundanely, it worries me just a stitch.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Maybe more than a stitch, just because this is like, okay, for context, this is 2008. So this should be Donald Trump's last.
Oh, yeah, it's 2028.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just as we saw, and again, like, right, this previous, we talked about earlier, but this previous eclipse cycle being Trump #1, and then now we're back in this eclipse cycle,
Yeah.
Trump #2. This is his last moment to try to impose a thing, or not him, but no, I really shouldn't, we should stop saying him. Really, the Trumpism, the new brand of the conservative party, maybe knowing that the end is nigh, hopefully, and or that there's going to be some kind of
Right.
shift
Yeah.
regardless who wins or doesn't win,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
that
And I think it's fair to talk about Trump specifically, given that he is a Leo rising. And so
yeah.
this eclipse cycle is very tied into that. I think also, right, we have the Pluto return of the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And it's happening like right here, right on this eclipse.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, so in mundane terms, like, again, it's like sticky and hairy, but like as far as us, like, this is the last, like, it's also our last chance. For We've been evolving in this way, and it's like almost, yeah, it's like, even it could be a bulldozer in that sense of like, no, like, I've done all of this work, I've gone through all of these levels, and I'm here now. I know I've my inner queen is out. Right, we've gone through that, like, we've
Yeah.
gone
In fact,
through.
she's a goddess in Pisces right now.
Yeah. Yeah, she's still really strong. We've been weathering this already for years. We know exactly what to do, and so this is sort of like, even then, like, just being like Pluto in Aquarius, Mars, like, for us, just knowing how to execute that last step, that last thing that needs severed, maybe, or the very focused on the future, like, we like you'll have your vision of who you are, that is going to come out now in the future, and or who you're going to be in this whole new world.
Sure.
Yeah. And you're not afraid to say it. It's Mercury, Mars.
Well, except for that's Mercury retrograde.
All
So
right. Okay.
it,
Well, we're coming back to something we should have said earlier, but now we're actually going to say it.
now we're actually going to say it and kind of be damned what happens, because we've got Pluto right at the heart of this, right? Like, we are transforming, we are not resisting that. We've got Uranus accelerating and facilitating that, and we made it.
Yeah.
We made it. At this point, it's going to be wild to check in in 2 years and see where we were.
Yeah.
See where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like, this really just ends things with a huge bang. It's just crazy. I guess it could be like, too, like, all of the pent up frustration, like all the times that you've kept silent, or because sometimes you do that, you sweep things under the rug to keep the peace, or
Yeah.
something.
But
Um,
I don't know. I think Mars and Aquarius, if it was Mars and Leo, I would be like, yeah,
True.
okay, all the times you kept silent. But this one is really like, Mars and Aquarius is really not self-serving.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe in terms of like, yeah, not in terms of you, I don't know, but
Mhm.
in terms of like the group, right? I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, that's what I mean. Times you've kept quiet in terms of your the people that you belong with, or the collective identity that you belong with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not self-serving, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. This is crazy.
It is. Well, thank you so much for processing all of this with me. And I hope, if people have made it all the way to the end, thanks for being here. And we hope this is helpful in terms of kind of living into your story, getting excited, but also having your eyes opened and your planners earmarked and being able to live into your story with a sense of Leonine empowerment and Aquarian freedom.
Yes. Yeah. And be sure to over the years, let us know how that's coming up or what you're thinking too. I like hearing other people's stories.
I love hearing other people's stories.
Yeah. And it's Leo Aquarius. This is the time. Tell your story.
It's the time.
Cool.
Tell your story. We love to hear it. Share it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And
thank you for being here. And yeah, we'll be here to talk about all of these eclipses again as they come up in our forecasts. But this is a really cool way to talk about a whole cycle at once.
Yes, for sure. It was fun.